This is a beautiful farm area of Israel in the southern Galilee region. Behind me is Mount Tabor, where Deborah and Barak defeated the Canaanites in the book of Judges, a very, very famous battle. But something else took place here that I just wanted to make special note of. You can see Mount Tabor here, but right here is another city. You can mark by the trees. It happens to be a tell that's known as En-Dor, the place of the witch that Saul, the king, consulted to see if he was going to survive a battle with the Philistines that took place on Mount Gilboa, which is over in that direction several miles. He comes here to consult with the witch to raise Samuel up from the grave. Whether or not that was actually Samuel that the witch raised, the witch was surprised. She was a fake. And suddenly there's a real apparition of Samuel, whether really him or an apparition of him that might have been demonic. And Saul consults him and says, what is going to happen to me in this battle that he's going to have with the Philistines over on Mount Gilboa the next day? Samuel tells him, you're going to be with me tomorrow, which is really bad news for Saul. But there's a backstory to all of this. As Saul is consulting the witch at En-Dor here, David is down in the south with the Philistines because he had been attacked by Saul. Saul was trying to kill him. He had actually joined up with the Philistines not to kill Israelites, but to sort of befuddle the Philistines and find protection from Saul with Saul's enemies and basically his enemies too. Well, the Philistines are about to attack Saul, which is what this whole incident was about here. And as David is trying to tell them, I'll be with you, and of course he wasn't going to harm Saul, so there's some shenanigans going on David's part. Suddenly David gets word that way down in the south in Philistine country, where David's men's families and David's family is, and they're being protected, suddenly the village is overrun by enemies and all of their families are kidnapped and taken south in the direction of Gaza. That's a long way from here. And David and his men immediately leave the Philistines and head south to go retrieve their families from the people that kidnapped them. Now that's the backstory. What does this have to do with anything? The Philistines attack Saul the day after he consults with the witch at En-Dor on Mount Gilboa over in that direction. We can't see it from here, so I'm not turning the camera around. And they kill Saul. They kill Jonathan, Saul's son, and other sons of Saul. They cut off their heads and they hang their bodies on a Philistine city, which used to be Canaanite, known as Beit Shan, which is near here. A tragedy and a catastrophe. But here's what God did. God put David as far away from this situation as possible, split him off from the Philistines, Israel's historical enemy, and sent David down to get his families. This disaster was God-oriented to get David away from this area so that when he became king after Saul died in that battle, his hands were clean. David had nothing to do with the Philistines killing Saul. David had nothing to do with himself taking out vengeance on Saul and killing him. His hands were clean when he came in as king there at the end of 1 Samuel and into the beginning of 2 Samuel. And it really all happened in this area where it came together when King Saul, who would die the very next day, consulted that witch at En-Dor right here at the foot of Mount Tabor. Saul then paid off the witch handsomely and was terrified by the situation, as was she. And the next day, he, Jonathan, and his sons were dead, and David was king. That's the story. That's the backstory. I think you'll notice from the length of the story that I just told that the chapters in the Bible tend to chop up the story. God didn't put the chapters there. People did, just to help with references. But we tend to start and stop with the chapters. Sometimes you've just got to read the whole story in one long, out loud reading like you're telling yourself a bedtime story, and suddenly it becomes very evident that there's a much greater thing that God is doing in the background. Well, here we are near Mount Tabor, near En-Dor. The story is told. God bless you, and read your Bibles. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, you'll find it all in there.